Hey gang, how are you? Welcome to today. We're going to talk about economic theory, morality, and what would be a fair distribution of income. So let's see if we can find our PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. A fair distribution of income would mean that all dogs get a toy and all cats get whatever it is cats want. Here's Pippin. He wants a nice, comfortable bed, and he also wants to go outside and hunt things. He is the great snake killer. Another cat of ours, Bodie, is the great chipmunk and rodent killer. Violet killed a bird outside our bird feeder. We don't allow her out. And we had to get rid of the bird feeders anyway because of bears. So that's that. Oh, all kittens should have a mommy to take care of them. And Bentley should have a seatbelt. Okay. Things to do, things to read, things to look at. Okay. Utilitarianism. The idea of utilitarianism, which is sort of the official normative philosophy of Western capitalism, is that we should distribute to maximize the sum of the individual welfare of all the people. Utilitarianism would imply that we should have an equal distribution of income because the poor have a higher marginal utility than the rich. Now, critics argue that, well, we can't compare marginal utility for different people because we don't really know how much pleasure different people get. So John Rawls made a different argument for an equal distribution of income with modification, that equality should be seen as a way of providing insurance for everyone, given that what state of the world we are in is entirely accidental. We don't know in advance, that is before we're born, whether we're going to be born smart, stupid, strong, weak, sickly, healthy, male, female, or trans, whatever. We don't know what will be born. So we would want a distribution of income where these accidents of birth don't matter. That would mean giving up the privilege of being born a white male in order to avoid the economic harm that might come from being born something else. Rawls would make one exception for this, which is giving more to some people can be justified if it will lead to an increase in income for the poorest people. So that's the modification. Okay. This really is a basic question that you need to think about. Should life be something money can buy? Should rich people have a better life than poor people? We don't have this rule for religion. You're allowed to practice your religion, whatever your income. We don't have it for voting. Everybody gets one vote. We don't have it for the right to walk on the Amherst Town Common. You're allowed to do that regardless of your income. So why do we treat some things differently? Do we believe that everyone should have rights? Or do we believe that things should be distributed as a reward for market work, for earning a lot of money? My coffee mug is a reward. It's a gift, so it's not quite a reward for my work, but you could say it was a reward for feeding the neighbor's cat and giving the cat a daily his daily insulin. So that's something. The coffee that's inside this mug, I bought with money that I earned, or whatever you call what I do here. So it's a reward for my market work. On the other hand, my right to walk on the sidewalks is a right. Practicing my religion is a right. Speaking up about my opinions on political or other matters, that's a right. Since the election of Ronald Reagan, we've increasingly moved from rights to rewards. Think about, I'm not saying you should have one position or another, but you should think about whether this is consistent with this sentence from the Declaration of Independence, which is sort of stating the American creed. It was referenced by Lincoln in the Gettysburg Address, Roosevelt, and others. People are endowed with their unalienable rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. People may accept liberty, but of course, what does liberty mean? Does it just mean you have the right to do something? But what if you don't have the money that you need to do it? Life? So yeah, we're not going to kill you. Well, what if you don't have the money for food or healthcare? And what's entailed by the pursuit of happiness? Do you need college tuition to pursue your goals in life, the things that will make you happy? And if you need tuition, where's that going to come from? And there are other things you may need to pursue your happiness. Should everybody have those? Unlimited? Yeah. Gets to the question, are we consumers or are we citizens? People talk about healthcare consumers a lot. There's people, health economists talk about healthcare consumers. Or are we citizens entitled to healthcare? Are we consumers of government services? People talk about that. They use that terminology too. Or are we, there's Corduroy. He is definitely a consumer. Or are we citizens entitled to help? If I call the town police, the Amherst police, complaining that somebody knocked over my mailbox or whatever, I expect the police to come, regardless of my income. Is that because I'm a citizen? Actually, you shouldn't even need to be a citizen in the town of Amherst. You're a resident. If you're a resident, are you entitled to help? Or should you have to pay the fire department to rescue your dog? Oh, the poor dog. I don't know what's wrong with the poor dog, but I hope it gets help. There is the question, should we treat citizens differently than others who happen to live here? If you're non-resident, should you get health care? Yeah. Should there be harsher criminal penalties for non-citizens? Okay, who should get the good things in life? Historically, until what you might call the bourgeois revolution, until the rise of capitalism, there was the aristocratic principle, which still kind of holds. You're entitled to things by birth. If you're born to the right family, the right nationality, the right race, the right religion, the right gender, the right sexual preference, you get things. Until recently in the United States, you could only get married if you were heterosexual. That's the aristocratic principle. You're born certain way, you get certain things. We've been moving away from that for hundreds of years in some dimensions. In other dimensions, we've moved more towards it. Like people born to rich parents are much more likely to grow up and become rich themselves. People born to poor families are much more likely to be poor as adults. Then there's the labor theory value, which is popular among the bourgeois revolutionaries, capitalists, and socialists. Coming from Karl Marx. You should get things on the basis of work and effort. By rewarding people for work and effort, we encourage people to work hard and be productive. It relates to market productivity. You get things because the market values what you do, which is a way of rewarding people for what the market values as productivity. Moral virtue. You should get things because you're a good human being. Mahatma Gandhi should have gotten more. Sister Teresa should have gotten more. Rabbis and ministers should be well paid because they're good human beings. And then utilitarianism. Just give people so that everybody will maximize total social welfare. Now, in practice, to be sure, distribution, and you're probably familiar with this, has become much less equal in the United States since the election of Ronald Reagan and changes in social and economic policy. Actually goes back a few years before that, before Reagan. Is it fair? Consistent with our national values? Is it economically efficient? Are we actually rewarding effort and productivity? Does it threaten our democratic politics? These are things we're going to talk about today and next time. Okay, the rich have gotten richer. 40% of the increase in national wealth from 79 to 2007 went to the top 1%, while the bottom 90% got only 36%. Since 2007, things actually haven't changed that much. They've become a little bit less equal, but about the same. Okay, top 0.1%, which is 300,000 Americans, 100,000, 75,000 families. Their income's gone up for almost 400%, 350%. While the bottom 90% have had an increase in income of about 20%. The top 0.1%, 300,000 people, 100,000 households or fewer. Average income, $6 million. What I find really interesting is this line, which is the top 0.01%. That's 30,000 people. Fewer than 10,000 households. And they now own about 14% of the United States. 11% of the United States. Handful of people. Okay. Gini index, this is a measure of inequality. A Gini index of 1 would mean that one person had everything. A Gini index of 0 means that income is perfectly equally distributed. The Gini index has gone up and now is higher in the United States than any other Western country. Few people since COVID-19 hit have gotten very, very rich. Elon Musk, who's received his Tesla, was bailed out by the federal government out of bankruptcy and has received tens of billions of dollars of federal subsidies for its electric car program. Is now the richest man in the world. Mark Zuckerberg, who's an asshole. Jeff Bezos. Amazon. Oh God, these people. Poor Jack Dorsey's gone up by only $7 billion. Okay. Now the poor, their consequences. The poor have worse health than the rich. This is true of every country in the world, even those with socialized healthcare systems, but much more true in the United States. Half of people with below average income have some unmet health needs because of cost. Many of these people don't have health insurance, but most of them do have health insurance. Richest Americans live longer than the poorest. People at the very top, women at the top of the income distribution, live about 8 years longer than women at the bottom. 10 years longer. Men at the top live 15 years longer than men at the bottom. And the gap is getting wider for men and for women. Is this right? Should life be something that money can buy? I don't know. I think most people would think money should not determine how good your circumstances are if money just depends on birth. But if money depends, how much money you have depends on how hard you work or how productive, then I think a lot of people would say, yeah. If money depends on how good a person you are, then I think most people would say, yeah. But of course, how good a person you are is something that we have a lot of troubles with. I mean, most of us might agree that Adolf Hitler was a bad person. But even there's some who disagree, mostly in the MAGA crowd. And then there are most of us who would agree that Mother Teresa was a good person. Paul Farmer, who's devoted his life to helping sick people in Haiti, was a good person. Most of us would agree, but even there, some wouldn't. Was Brother Francis a good person? St. Francis of Assisi? I would think so, and I think most people would agree, but again, not everybody. So how about how productive you are? Well, most people would say, let's see how much money you make in the market. Well, first of all, how much money you make in the market depends a lot on your birth. And secondly, it depends on all sorts of accidents. All sorts of accidents. Bill Gates, one of the richest people in the world, bought a computer program from somebody else. For $75,000, well, for $50,000, then he couldn't get it to work, so he hired the guys for $25,000 to make it work, and it did work, and then he sold it, and that became the basis of Microsoft. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were two of three people who started Apple Computer. The third guy sold out for $15,000 and moved to India.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Wow. We changed the wake up word on our Alexa to one of the words I just used, the word that comes after Apple in the name of that company. Okay, 15% of Americans are officially poor, and that's really bad. Family of four with an income under $22,000, that is not much. Don't try living on that. I hope you don't. Now, the poverty rate fell sharply in the 60s and early 70s with the Great Society. Since then, it's wobbled around. Men earn more than women. Men who work full-time earn more than women who work full-time. Difference of, this is my daughter. Tasha, I'm doing a lecture. Can I call you back in 20 minutes? Okay, bye-bye. Okay, I couldn't even hear what she said because I'm still hooked up to my earphones over there. Okay, helps to be a guy, especially at the top. Why does the income gap grow for really rich men compared to women at the very top? I can guess, but it's something to think about. Okay, women have higher poverty rates. Blacks and Hispanics have higher poverty rates. This is accidents of birth. Where you live matters. If you live in West Virginia, Mississippi, or Louisiana, you have a much higher chance of being very poor than if you live in Maine or Massachusetts. Connecticut, I think, no, actually Massachusetts has a lower poverty rate, as does Minnesota, Colorado, and Utah. Why do so many of the states with high poverty rates vote Republican? Okay, should your income depend on your birth? This is a question, should we be a country of ascribed status like feudal Europe? Real poverty rate is even higher. This is adjusting for, the way they calculate the poverty rate is they made an estimate of the poverty rate as 3 times the minimum diet, the minimum cost of a diet, in, I believe, 1961. About that. And it's been adjusted, that number's been adjusted ever since by the cost of living. But people need more to be out of poverty than they used to. Especially in places like New York City, where rents are really, really high. Anyway, these are different estimates. Okay. Should you be poor because you're old? Should we all have equal opportunity to pursue happiness? Do we all? What do you actually need to pursue your happiness? And poverty rates vary by age, etc. Wealth undermines, inequality, I should say, undermines meritocracy. If we think that people should be rewarded and have opportunities based on their own accomplishments, then wealth is undermining meritocracy. The rich are more likely to go to college regardless of their grades. You could be a really good student, and if you're in the bottom 20% of the income distribution, you are less likely to go to college or to be graduated from college than if you're a bad student from the top 20%. Family background helps people get into college, helps people go through college. This is calculation, cost a lot of money for people to do, showing the basically social mobility, economic mobility in the United States based on counties, county of birth. Notice the poorest places, and here you go back to this map of poverty, places like Mississippi, Louisiana, West Virginia, also have very low social mobility, economic mobility. The lightest, Oh, yeah. Okay, okay. I'll have to pull that back also. Um, the lightest counties are those where um you have the highest probability of moving up the economic ladder. The darkest are counties where you have the lowest probability. So when you get to places like, um, basically across the South, very little mobility. You get to Massachusetts, we're not doing great. We're okay. Oddly, some of the highest mobility are, farm states in the West. I don't quite understand some of this. But it is very clear that the racist South has the lowest mobility. That's clear. Not sure about everything else. Okay, here's different countries. The US is among the worst. We're not the actual worst. Great Britain has the lowest intergenerational, has the highest intergenerational earnings losses. That is the relationship between your income and that of your parents. Great Britain is the highest. Denmark, Austria, Norway, Sweden, countries with strong social welfare systems have the lowest. So in Denmark, you're much more likely, your income is much more likely to depend on what you do yourself. In Italy, Great Britain, the United States, it's much more likely to depend on what your parents did for you. Okay, and things have been getting worse over time. The poor are getting poorer. And student debt has been rising. You know about this. You may know something about auto debt. That hasn't changed that much. Credit card debt hasn't changed that much, but student loan debt is what's been rising. Okay, now why might we want an egalitarian distribution of income? If there's diminishing marginal utility, then an equal distribution will maximize welfare. Jeremy Bentham, great British philosopher. And there he is. He donated a lot of money to establish University College London, and that's on condition that they display his corpse. Oh, it's so weird. He was a weird guy. But his theory basically derived from downward sloping marginal utility. Remember that from the beginning of the semester? The richer you are, the less you need extra money, or the less benefit you get from extra money. Additional money gives less benefit, less happiness than the first money. In that case, every time we take from a rich person over here, take from a rich person over here and give to a poor person over here, you're going to be increasing happiness. You keep doing that until everybody's at an equal place. And that's where you'll maximize total happiness. Assuming, of course, that you can compare happiness for different people. Take from the rich and give to the poor until income is equally distributed. Now, of course, you may think this is unfair because you may say, hey, the rich have earned the money, they should get to keep it. Robert Nozick, the Harvard philosopher, argued this in famous book, Anarchy, Utopia, something or other, published in the mid-70s, which he drew from John Locke. I don't think Nozick really appreciated all of what Locke said, because Locke also believed in a benefit principle that there should be some degree of redistribution. But that was his argument. Nozick's colleague at Harvard, John Rawls, wrote a book at the same time, A Theory of Justice, which, based on diminishing marginal utility, so interpersonal utility comparisons, ignored the idea that people should get what they deserve, which is Nozick. Nozick did the morality thing, but it's associated morality with earning lots of money. Rawls discounted that and said, okay, if there's diminishing marginal utility, and we don't know where we stand on the income distribution, or where we will stand, then in the state of ignorance, before we know anything, we would want an equal distribution of income. If you don't know where you're going to be, you're going to want an equal distribution of income, because diminishing marginal utility means that you are risk averse. There's something else to take home to your parents: risk aversion. Risk aversion is where you are more worried about bad things than happy about good things. So if you're more worried about bad things than you are happy about good things, you buy insurance. You give up some of the good thing to avoid the bad thing. This is the insurance motive. This is why people buy homeowners insurance. This is why, even without a government mandate, most people will buy car insurance. And it's why most people will buy health insurance. You want to protect yourself against the really bad thing. Rawls applied that to income distribution. Said, well, if we don't know where we're going to be, we want protection. So we want an equal distribution of income. If you don't know whether you're going to be homeless or have a mansion, you want everybody to have a decent house. Would you want the blind to starve if you don't know whether you're going to be blind or seeing? No, you want the blind to have a decent standard of life. And this is not just about morality. This is about if you think you may be one of those people. So, in short, an equal distribution of income can be justified on several grounds. It can be justified on the grounds of utilitarianism, or it can be justified on the grounds of insurance. Or it could be justified on the grounds that people are basically people. So if there's no advantage of family, and there's no advantage of ascribed status where we give more to men than to women, or whites than to blacks, if we get rid of all those things, basically everybody's going to be about the same, so they should get about the same. Nozick argues that no, some people are more worthy, and the measure of their worthiness is how much money they earn. Others would say, well, a decent society is one where parents are able to give more to their children. The extreme of that is feudalism, which we generally in America, we don't like in principle, but in practice, we actually do. There are large elements of ascribed status in the United States, in our income distribution. And we'll talk much more about this next time. So until then, we'll stop the share and live long and prosper. Bye-bye.